Alright, this is my review of the table over the bed desk you get from Amazon. Okay, first thing is the packaging is horrible. They didn't really give any thought to how it sits in the package. They just put some foam around the sides. Normally I'm not too critical of that stuff, you know, as long as it gets to me just fine. However, in this case, it did not. Alright, you got busted pieces in the packaging. These little plastic parts didn't have like their own little spot to sit in. They were just basically thrown into the box and totally busted up. Now, the box did not have any damage on the outside. It wasn't like someone dropped the box or whatever. But sure, the package is going to get manhandled as they're moving it around. But that's to be expected. That's the whole point of packaging, right? So if there's no obvious damage to the box and you still got, you know, something like this going on, I don't know, maybe got crushed or squished or something. Doesn't matter. Their packaging is crap. You got busted pieces. Okay, next thing. Right from the factory, you got the table here. Now, these little tables were already attached to this metal piece. Alright, you got one completely wobbly. You got the other solid. But here's my concern. So, two things. One, yes, I could probably go and just tighten down the little screws here. You got one over here. I hope you see it. One here and one up here. And that's it. It's just those two little screws are what's supposed to hold this piece on. Now, that by itself, probably, you know, you could say, oh, well, you're nitpicking. Again, you know, we're talking about an $80 price point. I expect the table top to be held on more than only two screws. They're literally cutting as many corners as they can. You got those two screws, maybe you knock this table over, the whole thing busts off, right? And yes, I could tighten this up, you know, but I feel like, actually, is it a Phillips? You know, honestly, I didn't get a good enough look. I just assumed it's a Phillips. Let me see here. Yeah, it's a Phillips. It's a Phillips. So you could just sit here and tighten this up a bit. Not a big deal, but you're going into press board. You know, I mean, it's already going to wear out over time, come loose, you know. I feel like from the factory, they should at least get this right for quality control. Alright, now we're talking about the little bar here. It's supposed to go on the edge, right? There's some pretty big gripes with this. Now, again, I'm looking at an $80 to $90 price point. If you look down the length of this thing, you see it's not even straight. It's all wavy. It just goes to speak of the materials and the quality. You know, they're just as cheap as they can get it. The threading here, you can see that it's got the, they didn't even bother to clean up the edges so that the screws could go in there nicely. You know, so to get it started, you're going to be fighting with it to try and figure out, you know, or try and get that groove started. Whoops. So, I mean, just, you know, goes to speak of, they didn't even take the time to kind of clean up those holes for you. They didn't put some kind of embedded nut or embedded washer or anything in there to hold it on nicely. You're just screwing in the plastic, easily to thread, strip out. Very malleable, very hard to get started. You know, you can get it, yeah, don't get me wrong, it goes in, but, you know, it's just, for $80, I expect a little more than this. Not much more, but at least clean the hole or something. Get the part straight and not all wavy. Will it work? Yeah, but, you know, again, we're talking about an $80 price point. They could have done better. Now, here's the really big flaw with this table. Here's the real big problem. All this other stuff I might have been able to overlook. I might have even been able to let that go, right? Honestly, I probably wouldn't use it. This is my biggest gripe with this table. Yep. That's the whole top coming off, and let me explain why. First of all, let me explain that I was very careful when I built this table. I'm not, like, sitting here yanking on this thing, going manhandling it, okay? What happened is, you know, I had to put the feet on the bottom, so I had to flip the table over. Probably could have done it in a better order, sure, could have done the feet first, but, you know, I don't even know. Do they say in the instructions? Let's see. I don't know that they see. So, I mean, it's kind of not clear. They say put on the wheels at this point, right? And then it looks like you're supposed to have the table upside down, right? Lettering's upright, and then the table's upside down. So, of course, you put it, lay it on the ground, put your pipes in, lay it upside down. So, you put your wheels in, and so now you go to flip it, and this whole top comes off, right? Even according to the way they explained to build it, you just flip this table up, and this whole top came off, right? What happened, I just want to point out, is look at how cheap these little hinges are. Okay, first of all, they're just, these cheap little hinges. You can already see they're wearing out at the edges there. See, how are they attached? It looks like they went to Home Depot and got some of these cheap little, office, flaps or whatever, and then just welded it to here, which, fine, whatever. But look how loose they are. You know what I mean? They're going to bend over time. These are such chintzy little, flaps. So sure, you're like, okay, great. It's not the best hinge in the world. It's just, they just welded it or tacked it on. All right, not a big deal. Could look over that. What I can't overlook is the fact that they have the heaviest piece of this press board. Now, press board's not very light. And this piece isn't very big, but it's big enough that they put just 2 little screws on each one of these, right on the edge of it, too. So, I mean, that's not what happened this time, but, the screws just came right out because of the weight of this thing. They could have solved this so easily if they would have just made this flap bigger. Excuse me. Just made the flap come out to here or something. Maybe put, 2 or 3 more little screws into the bottom of it to keep the screws from ripping out. But no, they went with the cheapest little hinge that they could find. 10 cents from Home Depot. Maybe they made this. I don't know, whatever. Put, 2 little screws in it, right on the edge of it, and are like, oh, we're good. Now, let me point out, you might be like, oh, well, I'll just be more careful when I put this thing together. Look, if this thing falls over, you tip it or something, these screws are going to come right out. Okay, so if you want to take the chance of maybe I don't accidentally knock it over, I don't kick it one day or, knock stuff off of it or whatever, because everybody's perfect, they would never do that. This top part's going to come right off on you, rip off. Then go into the build quality. I mean, you see this thing here, look at this. Now, again, I'm not expecting the world, but for $80, this is not what I'm expecting. I'm not expecting something like this. I mean, it doesn't even pivot that well. So there you go. I mean, does it pivot? Yeah. But is it a nice smooth rotation? Not by any means. Right? So the whole idea of that part, if you haven't quite figured it out yet, is you got these grooves on the middle. And this piece is supposed to catch in those grooves, right? But, if you want to adjust this or something, you're going to have to... Now, given the table's going to be like this to you, right? This is the table. So, if you want to, set it upright, it's not ever going to sit, on that angle. It's not just I just going to, kind of set it up in a certain position. No, that thing, it doesn't even catch into those grooves very well. It doesn't rotate very well. So now you're going to be reaching, behind it like this to get your hand back there to put it in the grooves. Maybe you put some WD-40 in there. Maybe it sounds real critical. But again, this thing, look at it. It's all crooked. So that's the piece. It's all crooked just from doing this with it. You know what I mean? This is not an $80 table. I'm so frustrated with the build quality. Every corner they could cut, they cut it. Okay? To save a few extra cents. And these few things could have been solved. Make this latch a little bit bigger. Put a few more screws in the top, Make sure that put a little divot, cut away some of the material so you got a slot just for your plastic pieces so they're not sliding around in the box. You know, as far as like the wheels and stuff, I don't know. The wheels seem okay. I can't really complain about the wheels. This stuff seems okay. I mean, $80 quality, heck no. If you were to pull this pipe out, you would see there's just like a plastic liner, and this is just pushing directly against the pipe. So all it is just a screw. There's nothing on the other side. There's no like plates or anything on the other side that presses against the pipe. You're literally just pushing this screw up into the pipe with a plastic liner in between that the screw can easily squish or penetrate. So you end up with damaged plastic on the inside, which will probably cause these to maybe go in or not go in if you pull them out or something. I could live with that. I mean, it works. I'm not complaining about these. These work. I could look past that, but the rest of this stuff, man, the tabletop stuff, just the parts not even being straight, and not even taking the time to clean them up. I mean, look, again, if this is a $20 or $30 table, you get what you pay for, right? And at $80, I'm not expecting the world, but I am expecting that I don't get busted parts. I'm expecting the table's not going to fall off on me when I try and build it. I'm expecting that the parts are not going to be wobbly when I get it. You know, it's a garbage table. Stay away from this thing. Go, I think all these merchants get the table from the same manufacturer, and they just put a different name on it. So if you see one of these, be careful. They're, very, very cheap, not worth the $80 price point. Maybe $30 if you want to tinker with it. Maybe $20, but $80, no way in heck.